Honorable Shri Anup Chandra Pandeyji, my fellow election commissioner, heads of election management bodies of Mauritius, Cabo Verde, Armenia, Ms. Elizabeth Jones, Charge d'Affaires at Interim United States Embassy in India, Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, and other members of diplomatic corps from Costa Rica, Ghana, Jamaica, Albania, Nepal, Greece, Montenegro, Spain, and the US. Heads, representatives of international organizations from IDEA, IFSC, UNDP. Participants from different countries, Australia, Chile, Greece, Mexico, Mauritius, Micronesia, MS Wani, Additional Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Shri Dharmen Sharma on my right, Director General, and the man behind organizing this conference, and his entire team, ladies and gentlemen. Excellencies, very good morning to all of you, and a big namaste from India. Very warm welcome to all of you. I hope your stay is comfortable, all the foreign delegates here. We'll strive to make it more comfortable if it is a problem anywhere. It's indeed an honor and privilege for the Election Commission of India to host this first international conference on role, framework, and capacity of election management bodies under the aegis of Summit for Democracy. Having accepted the privilege of leading the cohort on election integrity, the ECI in the very beginning attempted to make the cohort's reach as wide as possible, both in conceptual terms and in physical sense. We have reached out to election management bodies, other counterpart election-related organizations, and non-governmental, intergovernmental organizations to participate in this present conference. We broad-based this cohort, admin and governance, and are happy, humbled, and privileged to have Mauritius, Greece, and IFES as our co-leads, and IDEA International, UNDP as our valuable participants and partners. And at this stage, I am particularly happy to welcome our co-leads, His Excellency Mr. Muhammad Irfan Abdul Rahman, who is on the dais, Electoral Commissioner of Mauritius. And let me share that he is perhaps the longest serving election commissioner world over. He will be completing his Silver Jubilee next year, January. 25 years of experience as Election Commissioner of Mauritius and many others. That's the kind of combined experience of years and years which we have today in this conference. I also welcome Ms. Aziliki Baruta, Head of Department Elections and Political Parties, Ministry of Interior, Greece, as our co-lead. And also Mr. Anthony Vanbury, President and CEO of IFES, as co-lead. And we have been working with them, which I'll explain also in later. And of course, it's a great honor and welcome to Ms. Elizabeth Jones, Charge d'Affaires and Interim United States Embassy in New Delhi, who is here as the very first public appearance after joining. Thank you very much, and it's within a few days that she's here of joining. We also welcome Mr. Jamura, Secretary General, International IDEA. We are thankful to each and every one of you and all participants for your valuable cooperation in organizing this conference, which we are sure would lay foundation for many more dialogues and institutionalized mechanisms to ultimately cooperate on contextual challenges and opportunities. Excellencies, peace, dialogue, inclusive participation in a free, fair, transparent, inclusive and accessible manner, truthfully reflecting expression of collective will of the people, is a hallmark of democracy. People thus get the governance they collectively aspire for. And it is our duty, all EMBs, that their collective will gets reflected truthfully. People's faith in the results of elections is the most fundamental percept. Participation of all, and I repeat, all without fear, influence, or any kind of inducement, that is what assumes criticality in every election. Father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi said, I understand democracy as something that gives the weak the same chance as the strong. And that's what is the idea of democracy, which is very deep rooted in India, in our historic context and traditions. It has always been a part of Indian ethos. It's actually a way of life. Our entire family system is based on participation and talking and discussing. All the welfare associations, societies, small villages, panchayats, it's all participation and it's taking everybody along. And just to remind that it was our ancestors, particularly in the Lichvis of Vaishali, which is presently in one of the provinces in Bihar, that had moved towards democracy as early as in 5th century BC. Friends, diverse opinions, dialogue, discussion, accommodation, non-aggression have for ages been and would continue to be intrinsic part of our culture, deeply ingrained in the minds of 950 million voters which we have in this country. And the quest towards a perfect democracy should be a shared pursuit of all the democratic societies. The Summit for Democracy initiative, which was started with the same objective with more than 100 countries, democracies across the world, highlighted the need for collaborative efforts to strengthen democratic practices and systems on a continuing basis. The summit set forth an affirmative agenda for democratic renewal and to tackle the diverse threats and challenges faced by democracies today throughout the election processes. Democracy cohort on election integrity is one such agreed action point under the aegis of which we are doing this conference. Excellencies, the role, framework and capacity of EMBs, a core building block for election integrity, is significant as it covers both the foundational and the functional aspects of any electoral democracy. In literature, publicists make a distinction between the foundational concept of democracy, which in that sense includes a country's decision to create an arm's length independent election management body to conduct free and fair elections. And it is distinct from operational and governance part of the democracy. So in this election integrity cohort, we would be collaborating on delivering free, fair, inclusive, accessible, and inducement-free elections. And this being a cornerstone of democratic polity is a precondition to reap the dividends of peace and development. These threshold concepts embody the understanding that sovereignty belongs to and flow from people of a country. And inclusivity gains criticality here. Making elections inclusive and accessible, both in enrollment and polling, also means adjusting inequalities, especially for women, persons with disabilities, senior citizens, young voters, and marginalized populations besides other special groups of voters. For the ECI, its roles and frameworks are provided by the Constitution itself. We have the privilege to have an iron-tight inclusive framework, legal, administrative, in every sense. Voter registration now is done 4 times a year, so it's kind of a continuous practice. We are linking it to the education boards and others, so that a voter who turns 18 gets a chance to become automatically a voter. No one can be prevented and no possibility of exclusion under threat or duress of any kind. That's what is the guarantee which we give to our voters, that every citizen has equal, and I repeat, absolutely equal right and facilitation and opportunity to become our voter and to contest or to cast vote in the elections. Yes, inducement and allurements are some of the existing malice which we are very proactively tackling by way of innovative tech-driven disclosures and appropriate prevention and or panel actions. Women participation has continuously increased and it has reached to 67% in the last 2019 elections. This is more than the male. This is what we achieved last time. And in many provinces, it's plus 80%. So it's in aggregate, it is 69. Our Another effort is for the inclusivity and also to recognize and respect our senior citizens. We are happy to inform, because it's a social indices indicator also. We have close to 18 million 80 plus voters in the country. And we have given them a facility to vote from the comfort of their house. Our team goes to their house, gets a form filled, and they have an option. And fortunately, many of them do not exercise that. Many of them want to come to the booth to join in the festival of democracy. I'd be happy to also bring to your notice in terms of the inclusivity. There are around 250,000 voters who are 100 plus, centenarians. And we have reached everybody's house, connected them by a personal letter. And it gives us so much of pleasure and pride that, number one, there are 100 plus voters. Number two, they have voted in almost all elections. And they are the torch bearers to the youth. And we present them as such to the youth, that you also come out and vote and don't get into a voter apathy or a young voter's apathy. So, inclusivity and equal opportunity is the central thread around which our entire democratic fabric is woven. The cohort needs to collaborate and learn more from each other. Excellencies, the global discussions now center on perceived democratic backsliding. Kindly allow me to briefly walk through the remarkable role that this cohort on integrity, election integrity, can play in tackling emergency challenges and in strengthening democracies world over. Despite wide disparities and differences in our respective constitutional systems, collaboratively learning from each other, we can resolutely respond to the emerging challenges ranging from non-inclusivity, money power, social media, false narratives, voter apathy, technology, lack of resources, and even legislative regulatory constraints in varying form in different democracies. Friends, leveraging of social media for voter connect has been a positive feature. But at the same time, misuse of social media platforms for disinformation is a real challenge before EMBs, and it has very disruptive potentials. One of the most potent and present pressing challenge is the intersection of our functioning with the social media platforms. The social media platforms, though, do self-proclaim that they have content display policies in play. But we believe they obviously also have the algorithm power with them. Thus, a more early or deeper red flagging of fake news based on known modus operandi and genres is not an unfair expectation from the EMB side for the social media platforms. After all, it will only be credible electoral outcomes that will help preserve the freedoms which the social media platforms also thrive on, and that's the fundamental percept of the social media platforms, that they are intermediaries and provide expression, right to expression to the people. But that also needs to go through the algorithms to check or red flag the kind of disruptive things. This cohort, we believe, is the right platform to learn from each other, as we did during COVID. The COVID challenge, in fact, can be said to be one such major moment when, learning from each other, we ensured that electoral process runs smoothly. We proved that disfranchising is not an option. Even temporarily, it's not an option. And you would be happy to know that in our case, elections were held in 11 provinces, and over 306 million people did cast their vote. And in 9 of the provinces, they did cast the votes which were more than the last election, even during pandemic. So friends, it is in this respect that this election integrity cohort may also emphasize during this on the capacity building. Depending on the size of the country and the number of people or voting age, conducting elections requires a set of robust skills, actually best in class and in disciplines like administration, legal, financial, technological, communication, etc. The capacity building issue will figure in the third session of our deliberations, and suffice to say at this moment that building capacity is not an episodal exercise before elections, but continuous updation to deal with changing and actually ever-increasing formal and non-formal threats to democratic space. Similarly, this will be one of the discussions in the next conference of the cohort. And similarly, the role of technology, which again is going to be the theme in our second conference in January 23, is also a vital vector for the success of any MBs in terms of data capture, its maintenance, its cyber security, its analytics. That also is a serious business in terms of technologies, and also in connecting with the entire election management in terms of one vertical, which is voters, the second vertical, which is the political parties and the candidates, and the third vertical, which is the entire logistics and the management. So we'll be discussing this in the third. Excellencies, the system of government, notwithstanding the design, the EMBs have to demonstrate neutrality, impartiality, and ensure the essential aspects of free, fair, inclusive, accessible, and ethical participation of voters. Sanctity of elections and purity of election process is paramount for sustenance of democracy and its legitimacy. Even a doubt in one election in one province can wipe out all the gains made during the last so many years. And that is most critical in maintaining and strengthening people's faith in the election. Time has come to strengthen democratic norms and processes by collective action. We may perhaps think of coming out with standard protocols and benchmarks for various aspects of election management world over as global standards. Like these may be developed perhaps by this cohort or deliberated by this cohort. For example, benchmarks like infrastructure on polling station, accessibility parameters, participation of women, PWDs, senior citizens, marginalized communities, election-related expenditure, minimum level of disclosures, transparency, SOPs on to tackle misinformation, fake news, hate news, templates on voter education, ethical election, and increasing participation, etc. These are some of the benchmarks which probably we can combinedly develop or deliberate so that elections are judged against these touchstones. Friends, I once again welcome you all to this conference. I am sure the deliberations over the next 2 days will help enhance our understanding on the emerging issues and challenges of election integrity with focus on role, framework, and capacities of EMBs, which constitute the basic building block of a healthy democracy. The discussion would help in better understanding of the existing mechanisms to address challenges and learn from each other's best practices, experiences for strengthening the EMBs, and to ensure timely delivery of election with perfection, precision, transparency, and professionalism, enabling peaceful transition of power as per the will of the people, and thereby supporting, nurturing, and strengthening a smooth progression of electoral democracy. I am hopeful that cohort will provide a platform to reflect, listen, and as well as to plan and act in some form of an institutionalized manner so that we can consolidate our shared foundation for global strength. With commitment to support cause of democracy in whatever way we can, thank you very much and for contributing and participating in this conference. ECI team would strive hard to see that your stay is comfortable and your deliberations are meaningful and fruitful in next 2 days. Thank you very much.